Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for a National Name Exchange webinar, Starting Strong Strategies to Make the Successful Transition to Graduate School. My name is Matthew Linton. I'm the Senior Manager for Programs and Publications at the Council of Graduate Schools, and I also run the National Name Exchange. Before we get into the content for today's presentation, I just want to go over some quick meeting logistics to make our session run as smoothly as possible. So the meeting will be recorded, and the recording and the slides will be made available to NNE students as well as NNE coordinators and other staff of CGS member institutions. You can submit questions at any time for the panelists in the Q&A feature of the Zoom toolbar. However, we will only be answering questions at the end of today's presentations during the designated Q&A session. The plan for the day, we've got three kind of main areas of content for today. The first is I'm going to briefly run through some learning goals for today, as well as some short presenter introductions. Following that, we're going to move into the actual presentations for today from Raquel and Miriam. And their presentations are going to be around 40 minutes combined. And then we're going to close with a period of moderated Q&A, where you will answer the questions that you submit live, as well as questions that you may have submitted as part of the registration process for today's event. We have 6 learning goals for today's event. The first is to understand the major differences between undergraduate and graduate education. The second is to examine and understand the role of the advisor and how that role may differ from other mentors you have in graduate school. The third is how to identify campus resources to help you with your transition to graduate school, especially since there may be quite a bit of variation between schools and programs. The fourth is to know what questions to ask graduate faculty, as well as programs and current graduate students. The fifth is how you can feel prepared to navigate graduate program expectations and how those expectations may differ from undergraduate program expectations. And then finally, how to advocate for yourself in graduate school, since it's very important that you have agency as a graduate student when you move into your graduate program. With that, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. The first of our presenters is going to be Raquel Aroca. She's the Assistant Dean for Graduate Recruitment and Engagement at the University of Missouri. She's also an Associate Teaching Professor at the University of Missouri's Graduate School. She has a BA in International Relations, an MA in Philosophy, and a doctorate in Interdisciplinary Studies. She currently mentors incoming graduate students through a 1-year transition to graduate school program for diverse scholars. Additionally, she mentors prospective graduate students in their journey to find the right graduate program. She serves as an ad hoc liaison for graduate students and faculty who may need support navigating a difficult mentoring situation and is one of the facilitators for mentoring workshops to support faculty development in mentorship skills. Our second presenter is going to be Miriam Okine Davies, who is the Assistant Dean, Graduate Student Affairs and Enrollment Management at Howard University. She has over 14 years of experience leading data-informed graduate student success and strategic enrollment initiatives with expertise in lifecycle analytics and risk assessment, CRM, ERMP implementation, and student-centered service design. She has cross-sector experience spanning graduate education, public policy research, and public relations, with a background in strategic brand management and market positioning in higher education. So with those introductions, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Raquel to get us started. Raquel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matt. Let me successfully share here. Hopefully I did.
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with a brief land acknowledgement. I live and work in Missouri, and these are the traditional lands of the Missouri, Osage, Illini, Iowa, Oto, Chickasaw, and Quackpot tribes. Because Matt already introduced me, I will just keep us moving with my context. So what I'm going to talk to you about, I try to make it general, but as also I want you to understand that I'm in a very particular context of the University of Missouri. So we have 146 graduate programs, over 5,000 graduate students. We have a good percentage of our PhD students funded, 82%. So this is also a mid-sized college town. And the graduate school here provides professional development programming for our students. In addition to what the departments may provide, we have graduate career coaches and external grants and awards and fellowship support. And then, as Matt mentioned, I run some support programs for transition to graduate school. So this is just to keep you a little bit, centered to how I'm approaching this. And if you've seen something here that it's interesting to you when you are in your graduate program at the institution you're going to be in, check out to see if they have those resources as well to help you. So I designed this to give you my top 3 tips to be successful in your transition to graduate school. Um, First one is to align expectations. Then is to identify the resources for success, like I was mentioning, what in my context, and then to be proactive in your graduate school life. Um, so let's start with aligning expectation. Uh, when before we talk about aligning expectation, I want you to be aware that different contexts, different fields, different discipline cultures have different ideas of what mentoring in graduate school will be like. And they have different names for it. But typically, when you're thinking about a mentor, you're thinking about a more senior individual who provides career and psychosocial support to a junior member of a given organization. But you also have that in graduate education. Sometimes you have formal mentors, informal mentors, but they are providing you with this career and psychosocial support. When you're thinking about an advisor, and sometimes they will say it's your academic advisor, your program advisor. They are typically a professional or institutional driven relationship where they are trying to support you in completing academic tasks to get and sometimes get the necessary permissions for you to do something in academia. You want to, and sometimes they use those 2 words interchangeably. Somebody will keep saying, "Oh, I'm this person's advisor," and they may be actually meaning a mentor. And other times they say, "Oh, I'm the mentor," but they are working in the definition of an advisor. So I'm teaching you this because one of the things that is important for you as you're aligning expectations with whoever is going to be your either advisor or mentor in graduate school is understanding what their relationship is about so that you can set up realistic expectations with them. Um, uh, so so the first thing that I want you to think about as you're starting your journey into graduate school, or even if you're still a prospective student and you're exploring this, is trying to figure out, what kind of mentoring you're in or that you want to be in, right? What are you expecting to gain in that relationship? Or what are you expecting to from that mentor or advisor in there? For that, I am going to put in chat. Let's see if I can make this work because I don't do webinars all that often. So I want to make sure that I get the right information to you. I'm going to give you some links to um, some documents that can help you understand some common expectations for mentees, some common expectations for mentors, and even trying to figure out how different people see the relationship. There's a student advisor expectation scale that you can look through and even suggest your mentor or advisor to work with that with you. There are some instructions in there. The other thing that for you to align expectations is having a conversation with your mentor or advisor about if they use mentoring compacts. Maybe they will already provide you when you start the relationship, have that conversation, But if they don't have that conversation, it will be a good document to have. So a mentoring compact is a document that either you're working together with more open-ended questions in specific categories with your mentor and advisor to figure out how to build that relationship, what you both expect in certain areas from communication, sometimes from, in terms of authorship, in terms of when do you need to be in the lab, what are policies for vacation, policies for leave of absence, and things like that. So it's a document that you can work together. And sometimes they are very structured. I've seen some graduate labs that have very structured documents that are multi-page that will tell you everything, what to expect both from their mentor, from the PI, the principal investigator in that lab, and the students from undergraduates, graduate students, and then postdoc scholars too. So it's just this document that helps you understand what those expectations are. A source of two, if you're interested in seeing what kind of documents they would be, if you haven't been introduced that, I put that link in chat as well. And the last thing goes along is identifying what your needs are. Sometimes they'll have an individual development plan. Sometimes there are assessments that you can take at a career center, or there is one at Imagine PhD that you can create a free account and take some of the assessments to identify what do you need, what do you value, how do you see your career unfolding? What do you need to develop yourself to gain skills and knowledge as you move forward? Once you know that, you can ask people for support. So it requires you to do a little bit more of the work yourself, right? Then the second part that I wanted to talk about are resources. So you're trying to figure out as you're entering this new journey and whatever institution you're entering in, and city that you're moving to, right? You're trying to find what resources will help you. In terms of academics, things that at the institution you should have, you must have, are a graduate student handbook. So asking, your program advisor, director of graduate studies, your mentor, your principal investigator, whoever it is, that person, or, a departmental staff, where is the graduate student handbook? Oftentimes they would give that to you, provide that during orientation. But if you haven't heard of it, ask for it, look for it. That would typically have a lot of information about the program and some of their expectations at the level of the program, not at your your mentorship relationship. So that's why you are going to align expectations with your mentor. So you're finding your graduate student handbook. You're trying to find information and make sure you have it, saved in a place that you can easily go back to, of program level and graduate school level policies and procedures for everything that you will need to go through the program. And so you can easily find leave of absences, or what documents you need to submit at what times in the program. So, and I do say program level and graduate school level. So typically the graduate school level will provide you with the minimum requirements that they will have. And the program level, usually it will be things that the program is specifically wants you to have for that. They will not contradict one another. So if they do, you have to talk with people at the program level, the graduate school level, to unravel that. But they should provide you with a whole picture of it. And sometimes a program might not have a specific policy for something, but the graduate school will have that. So the program will defer to the graduate school to manage those kinds of policies. Sometimes could be parenting policies, so for students who are parents or will become parents. Then the other things are really your degree requirements. You see some of that in the policies and procedures, but understand and have a talk about what are the specific degree requirements that you have in your program, and how that may impact your journey. For example, some counseling psychology, for counseling psychology, they'll have a 1 year internship. So understanding how, when you are going to do that, what is required of you in terms of paperwork at the institution for that, because it's very specific for that degree requirement for you to attain that degree. So you're trying to find all that information and things that are not necessarily academic resources, but that will help you. Anything relating to financial success, even things from how to make a budget at a graduate school stipend in a new city, right? Any writing center support that's specific for graduate students, any learning centers that have tools and support for you to manage time, manage studying at the graduate level, even to brush up on things that you didn't pay attention to before, but it becomes essential for graduate school, like really good note taking, understanding how to summarize things, synthesize knowledge, all of that. Do they have support for you for that? The Disability Center, a lot of graduate students end up being diagnosed for ADHD in graduate school. And so they have to figure out how to manage that, how to live with that diagnosis and the support system that they will have at the institution. And then the community resources at that institution, from places to exercise, places for support with mental health. There'll be also well-being and mental health resources at the institution that I did not put there, but it should be really paramount for you to understand what is the health support and mental well-being that the institution provides you with. And then the other part is to be proactive. So if you're thinking about what is proactive, what do I mean by being proactive? I just went back to the dictionary because I'm a geek. I love dictionary and words, and I need to know them and understand the nuance. So being proactive means controlling a situation by making things happen rather than waiting for things to happen and then reacting to them, because at the graduate level they're not expecting you to just react to things, because you are now going to moving from a consumer of knowledge perspective to a producer of knowledge. Okay, whether you're in a master's program or a professional program or a doctoral program, you've gotten the foundation in your undergraduate. Now you're needing to figure out how to put those pieces together, how to continue learning and not just learning and then from one class and not thinking about the other class. How do those classes work together? Because they are put together in a curriculum because they're going to give you the knowledge that you need to succeed and to produce knowledge and to apply that knowledge. So you're trying to, becoming that producer of knowledge. The other thing that they will expect you to do is to propose solutions instead of always asking for what should I do? The what should I do is your undergraduate mentality, but here's maybe is I can't do this by X date, but I can do this and maybe something else, or maybe just that by another date because of X, Y, and Z, right? So you're providing solutions. You're saying, what about, if somebody asks for a meeting at a certain day, you're like, well, that doesn't work. What about these dates and times? So you're showing that you're proposing solutions instead of waiting for, them to email you back and ask, okay, what days then can you do it? Because you only said that you couldn't do it, right? So you're proposing solutions to them. You're showing to them that you're thinking through, you're thinking about the different variables and different things that can happen, and you're trying to anticipate anything. You should also be always taking notes during meetings. Any meeting that you go with your principal investigator, the mentor, you're taking notes and you're creating summaries and next steps so that that goes back to aligning expectations, because then you can send it back to them and saying, here's my understanding of where we are and the next steps. And you can ask them, is there anything that I'm missing? Or that I misunderstood, feel free to send those additions and edits to me. So that way you're showing that I'm not just listening to you, I'm showing you that I'm making an effort to understand and to plan out what are the next things that we are expected to be, that's expected to be done, right? And then the last thing I'll leave you with is about planning your semester. A lot of the times when you get to graduate school, uh, some of my graduate students tell me, I actually have a lot of free time. And actually, it's not that they have free time. It's just that the time and how you're managing that is different in graduate school. You may have a lot of more unstructured time where you're the one deciding what you're going to do with that time based on all the things that you need to do, instead of just, okay, you have to do this class, go to this activity, and do something else, that everything is blocked out in your calendar. And sometimes it is the calendar, you have to make it your own. So trying to figure out what is all that I need to be doing this semester. It could be I have a research assistantship and a teaching assistantship and my classes and personal life. How do I make all those pieces fit together, not just for the next week or for this week, but for the whole semester, so that I can preview if will I have some difficulties with a lot of different due dates at this in the same week, right? Because your professors don't know that. They're not talking to one another about that, but it's up to you to figure it out and again propose solutions for that. So with that, that's my those are my tips for that, and I will turn it over to Miriam.
Thank you, Miriam. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Raquel. And thank you, Matt, for that wonderful introduction. So I'll also just jump right in. Let me share my slides and make sure that you guys can see it. Okay, so I'll be talking as well about the transition to grad school and navigating that. So I'll give a brief overview of the context for the grad school at Howard University. So we have a number of degree offerings and certificate offerings at the graduate level in over 120 areas of study across the grad school. And of course, many of the research programs that we offer are in health disparities research, AI, computer science, and engineering is also a really strong core area of research for us. Professional development is something that we take very seriously in the grad school. So we offer grant writing opportunities for students. This also happens at the departmental level. There is nothing better than a student going on the job market and realizing that their ability to secure a grant is what got them that tenure track faculty position, right? The ability to also translate your research in ways that folks feel the impact and understand kind of how it is moving the needle in the field. Many of our students come to the grad school wanting to really explore gaps in their research, literature, and in the field, and really move the needle in their field. So it's something that we welcome wholeheartedly. We also have faculty that are really leaders in their field, whether they're practitioners or whether they're research scientists. They are really leading in their fields, but they are also committed to mentorship. So this idea of how do we look at pedagogy and practice? How do we look at the ways in which we're engaging neurodivergent students? They really stay abreast of those changes in higher education, but are also committed to making sure that you all are part of the process of co-creation, right? So it isn't just about can you work on this project with me? It's also about how can we get your work out there? How can you be a co-author? How can we find you opportunities to make sure that your research has the impact that you intend for it to have, right? And then the other piece of it is we're in DC, right? So this is one of the international capitals of the world. We're also in the center of policy and practice. So for folks who are looking to make a difference in policy and advocate for the populations that they're working with and whose research touches those particular populations, there are opportunities to advocate on the Hill, right? So that's a great opportunity. We're also a city with the highest one of the highest concentrations of nonprofits and think tanks in the nation. So definitely prime area of opportunity for students to get involved. AI is a huge niche. FinTech is another area of strength, a lot of business sector opportunities as well, and then health. We also have a strong alumni network. So our alumni, they come to events and hang out with our students. There are no shortage of those, but there's also really tangible ways that they give back in terms of their knowledge about how they navigated their careers. So for example, we have a doctoral careers pathway conference coming up. It's a virtual event held by my colleague Anna, and it's wonderful. So our alumni come back and talk about the different areas they're in. So whether it's social sciences, social impact, fintech, social science, research, health, whatever area they're in, talk about the ways in which they leverage their resources while they were grad students at Howard to really make an impact in their fields or enter their particular careers. They share their contacts, their networks. So really you have the benefit of gaining access to our huge alumni network. So in terms of folks who are wondering, okay, do I do the master's degree? You're kind of deciding between programs and you're not sure whether you want to do the master's, the PhD, or whether a gap year is appropriate. These are some things that you might think about, right? One of the things that I like to share with students is that oftentimes you have a PhD program, you have a master's program, these two different levels within the same program at a particular school. In the case that a program has these two different levels, you may be able to pursue a PhD and get a master's degree in passing. Why is this important? If you are a student who's like, I really, really have an interest in research, but I want to get my feet wet and kind of see, so maybe I'm thinking of doing the master's, just keep in mind that oftentimes where folks have the two levels of degree in the same program, the students at the didactic core level of their programs, when they're taking their core courses, they're often taking very similar programs of study and very similar core coursework. It's going to vary by institution, but that's something that you want to keep in mind is if I pursue the PhD, I might be able to get a master's degree as well and kind of a 2-for-1. That also, you might think about, okay, it's a longer term commitment, so 4 to 7 years for the PhD. Do you really want to do that, or do you want to use the master's program as a stepping stone? In some cases, some PhD programs will require that you have a master's program. Not all. Many programs will take students straight out of undergrad, but it's something to consider. And that gap year gives you the time to clarify kind of your goals, gain experience. Maybe you applied for a program in 1 year, didn't do as well as you would have liked to, or receive an admission offer. So it gives you time to kind of beef up your research experience, maybe work for a research internship, work for a think tank, and beef up those research skills so that you can make a better case the next time around. So these are some things to think about. There's also resources. Some students decide that they want to take a gap year to think about the resources that they might have at their disposal and whether it's feasible for them. So when you're thinking about the transition to grad school, you can expect that there will be obviously the physical transition once you get your admission offer, but there will be a shift in your identity. There will be a shift in the expectations and the ownership. So you're moving, as Raquel mentioned earlier, you're moving from this more structured experience in undergrad to more self-directed experience. So really taking initiative and being in charge of the trajectory of your career. One of the things to think about in terms of how the transition might feel is that, you know, you're moving from the breadth of the undergrad experience to really thinking about, oh, wow, like I'm I'm going to become an expert in my field. I feel like this is becoming my identity, right? You might think of how to synthesize and look across the types of research that you're looking at, especially at the doctoral level. You're engaging in synthesis and critique and really building upon the work of others and creating new knowledge. So you're often going to figure out how you can fill the gap, how your work can be more original, what research has come before yours, and how you can incorporate and build upon those methodologies, or shift away from it and move the needle in a different direction within your field. You're going to often, your initiative will shape the direction of your progress. It's often your evaluation and the progress and the way departments will look at your progress is often tied to milestone achievements and also advisor and project dependent, right? So you're in grad school, you're moving from, okay, I may have gone to office hours in undergrad and faculty may have come looking for me if they wanted to make sure I was staying on track in this course, to you really have to make sure that you're taking the initiative and you are working under the mentorship of a faculty member whose job it is to provide critical feedback, whose job it is to push you in different directions. And that will be something that you can look forward to, is that you get that hands-on mentorship. And it can sometimes feel isolating, but the great thing about grad school is that you have folks that are in this as well, and that you can often find communities of support to help you navigate that. It can often feel like multiple full-time jobs, like many of our students say, but it's well worth the investment for sure. So I'll walk through some of the strategies for graduate student success. We'll walk through how to design a system and kind of organize your time, how to come up with a flexible plan, and I'll talk about why the flexibility is really important, how to invest in your development, building a network of support, how to practice self-advocacy, identify and access resource, and how to prioritize self-care. So we'll walk through designing your system. You want to make sure that you're getting organized. What does that mean? It means you own your time. You have a specific scheduling system, whether that's a calendar, and you're scheduling everything on there. You're making sure that you have allocated the most productive hours in the day for you and blocked off that time. And you want to protect this time by all means to ensure that you're staying on track, right? And then you also want to look at the how of how you're organizing your research studies and your work. So oftentimes folks will use a number of file storage systems and bibliographic tracking systems. RefWorks and OneNote, Zotero are really great systems and resources. There's also a number of new products out there that allow for AI interface. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do. You can do heat maps of where research is interrelated. Like there's a lot of really interesting ways that people are using these tools. And then you can use, a cloud system. And the other tip that I like to give to students is really important to keep a research diary, especially if you're doing a lot of computational work, so that you're tracking how your research is changing over time, what you might need to pivot, where there might be limitations in the type of methodologies or approaches that you're using, et cetera, access to data. These are things that you want to make sure that you're keeping track of. And then organizing your life, right? So finding reliable study places on and off campus, making sure that you have clearly communicated boundaries early, even with folks who are mentoring you, so that you have that time for yourself as well. The other thing that you want to organize is your budget in advance. Programs will often give you what's called a cost of attendance budget, which will outline direct costs, and they're outlined here, tuition fees, if they have on-campus housing. All of this is billed to your student account, right, in many instances. And then the indirect costs are things that you want to account for that may not be billed directly to your student account. So you'll have this breakdown, and that can help you think through what your budget and the allocation of your resources would look like. The other thing you want to think about is creating a flexible plan. What does that mean? It means, as Raquel mentioned earlier, you want to get your hands on that program handbook earlier on, whether it's a program handbook, policy handbook, and outline what the trajectory of your program looks like. So whether at the master's level or the PhD level, you might have a foreign language requirement that you need to complete. Maybe there's a writing proficiency requirement. There's oftentimes a high stakes qualifying or comprehensive exam that you'll be expected to take after you complete the core or didactic portion of your program. And then in the later stages of your advancement in your program, you move towards looking at maybe a research proposal if you're in a PhD program, or if you're doing like a research-based master's and you're doing a thesis, you're going to look at what your research proposal is. You're going to gain approval for it, put together a committee that will guide you and provide feedback about your research and how it's moving. And then finally culminating in the dissertation, thesis, capstone, whatever, which is what you'll complete in order to obtain your degree. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of this and creating a long-term plan, but also being nimble enough to expect pivots, because there may be changes in direction. There may be new data that emerges in the course of your research. There may be a feasibility issue. I know COVID, made a lot of folks who were doing like bench research had to pause on some of the work that they were doing. So these are all things that you want to maintain that level of flexibility to be able to pivot and make sure that you stay the course. The other piece of creating a plan is creating a mentoring plan. So you want to make sure, again, that self-direction. You're not waiting for a faculty member or an advisor to come to you. You're carving a regular check-in meeting with your advisor or mentor, and you're being proactive about how you're approaching that meeting. So you come prepared with an agenda. You, as a grad student, are solution-oriented, right? So you're thinking about the challenges, and you're outlining where are the roadblocks I'm experiencing in my research, but here are the solutions I have for some of those roadblocks, right? And then you ask questions, you engage, right? You develop a set of shared expectations and align in these meetings so that you can keep on track and make sure that there's open communication. And then the piece that's really important is you want to be open to feedback. A lot of it is going to be critique. As a grad student, what's really exciting about being in a classroom, being in seminar with others of your colleagues, is that at this point, you're looking at the work that others have done and you're engaging in critique about that work. What are the ways in which this methodology is really strong? What are the ways in which this data may have fallen short? Are there new areas of research direction that we can explore here? You're really looking at synthesizing and building upon the work of others. And part of that is critique and feedback. So you can expect that from your advisor. And then you want to be also open to asking questions about the opportunities that you can take advantage of. So there might be hidden opportunities like brown bag lunches where folks know that there's a particular faculty member that's going to come that you really want to get to know and build a relationship with, right? So these are things that you want to keep on your radar. You want to also invest in your development. So you're thinking about the opportunities that are coming across your desk. They're going to receive multiple emails from folks about this research opportunity, this leadership opportunity. You'll be inundated. So what you want to do is choose your opportunities strategically. Think about the ones that you're really excited about, that you think would help move your career along, really supplement the research that you're doing, et cetera. So these are some of the areas that you want to focus: research opportunities, teaching opportunities, leadership and service is really great, and then professional opportunities. Oftentimes, folks will look at this diversified portfolio of opportunities that you've taken advantage of to make the case for maybe a fellowship that you're looking to apply for. So they'll have a lot to work with for their letters of recommendation. And you can't do everything. You can't be everything to everyone. So you want to make sure that you're choosing strategically and keeping in mind your time in balancing work and life. The other thing to think about is graduate school sources of funding. So these are some of the areas that folks can often seek funding. So you may get a graduate assistantship or fellowship at the institutional level for the program that you're going into. You may receive a faculty grant, research grant that you'd be working on with a advisor that you might potentially work with. But think about external grants and fellowships. Think about professional association memberships. Oftentimes those come at a discounted rate for students. You become part of a local chapter. You become more visible within the field. And then you get access to all of these opportunities, whether that's job opportunities, grants, dissertation completion, travel grants, etc. So these are some things that you want to stay open to. And then building your network of support. You want to start early. You want to come to the table investing in every relationship that you come across, every person that may fall into one of these circles. You want to come with a genuine interest in who they are. There is a saying that people remember how you make them feel, right? So every interaction is an opportunity to share a bit about who you are and your why, your motivation for doing the type of work that you do, and an opportunity to continue to invest in people and then have them invest in you as well. So these are the different areas of folks that you can really rely on from the beginning. And the research says that a mentor network really makes a difference. So not just one advisor, not just one mentor, but multiple people. And these are the ways that it makes a difference. It enhances your research identity, your sense of belonging, your persistence, and your ability to move through your program efficiently, research productivity, and leads to a higher level of career satisfaction. The other really, really important piece that I like to share with students is how to practice self-advocacy. These are tools that I'll share with you all, very tactile, that really allow you to think through some of the challenges and ways that you can advocate for yourself. Part of that is mindset and thinking about the challenges that you might experience and how you might approach them. So you'll get stuck inevitably. It's okay to be excited about the research that you do. I don't want to say that it's always very difficult, but grad school comes with challenges. And, it's one of the things that we encourage students to welcome. You may receive feedback that seems really critical, but instead of thinking, okay, I feel judged, not sure if this work is worth it anymore, maybe let me just change direction, be open to the feedback. Use it as new data to improve and grow and flex your research muscle. Also, failure, see it as an opportunity to grow and fail forward. If you feel like I'm not successful, I don't know if I can, do this dissertation, this is a really difficult paper, I'm not understanding the methodology, the more you get used to doing the work, the more that you rely on your peers and peer support groups, whether that's writing circles, whether that's peer-to-peer advice or workshops that folks are offering, you will get better over time. So you want to see it always the challenges as opportunity to grow. The other piece that I like to share with folks is resolving conflict. Before things bubble up and get out of hand, this is one of the tools that you can use. This is actually adopted by the military and later the healthcare industry. Let's say you have a miscommunication with a faculty advisor. One of the things you want to do is you want to take a deep breath, step back, and take stock of the situation. Think about what may be the root cause. If it's a miscommunication, what potentially could have caused the miscommunication? Then you want to think about, again, this proactive, solution-oriented, resourceful approach. What are the strategies that you could potentially use to resolve this conflict, whether that's a compact, whether that's being more explicit and clear about boundary setting or clarification of goals and expectations. That's something that you want to do upfront, and then make your final recommendation so that folks know that you really want to move towards resolution. Okay, and then these are some of the resources. Raquel mentioned some of these a little bit earlier, but these are some things that you might take advantage of at any campus that you're at. Subject librarians happen to be a really resourceful tool for folks. Like, they are wonderful at helping folks find data sources that may be hidden and getting you the information that you need. And then you want to prioritize self-care, right? So these are the 8 dimensions of wellness. This was adapted from Power Woman and Canva, but these are some areas that you definitely want to think of. Here at the grad school at Howard, I can tell you that one of the things that we take seriously is that our students are not just a sum of their academic, occupational, graduate career. They're also whole students. They have other areas of their life that they want to nurture and that should grow. So you want to think about all of these dimensions and tap into the resources at your disposal to make sure that you're feeding all of these dimensions of who you are. Because if you are not whole, it's more difficult to do the work, right? So make sure you're checking in. And also do not self-isolate. It's really important to ensure that you have a social network and that you're tapping into it. Schedule a standing meeting with someone or a couple of folks week to week so that you can stay in touch. I think part of staying connected is creating a circle of accountability partners because it can get lonely, especially when you're doing a PhD. So folks that you'll do a writing circle, you'll discuss your thesis, you'll have a research group where you're looking over some of the research in your field. This moves you towards collaboration. Maybe there are things that you haven't thought about, but then that praxis of discussion and the back and forth between some of your peers allows you renewed insight into ways that you might approach a challenging research question, right? So these are ways that you can move outside of the isolation and really propel your career forward. For folks who are thinking about, okay, I am waiting. I've applied, I may have received a decision. Now what do I do? You want to keep building your skills until you hear back, right? So you can take a course, you can present more of your research if you have it, you can publish, even if it's a digital facing publication. You want to get a sense of the program's culture. So keep engaged, attend a virtual event if they have one, admitted student days, and you want to ask current graduate students about the culture of the program. Maybe there's a syllabus that you can get your hands on to get acclimated with what types of domains of research, what the expectations are for first semester, right? So you want to ask about student life, housing, tips for navigating the program. You prepare your budget. Of course, we talked about that earlier. You want to also engage with your incoming cohort. Oftentimes, there are chat groups that you can join for incoming students. You can attend, again, admitted student days. The thing that you want to keep in mind is continue to make a good impression. Academia is a very small world. Every interaction you have with program faculty, with students, with staff is creating an impression of who you are and who you will become in the program, right? So make sure that you're not taking any of that for granted, from the secretary to the faculty that you might like to work with. Okay, I think that is it for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Miriam. So I'm just gonna quickly move over now to our Q&A portion of today's event. So if you have a question, please do now put it into the Q&A box in your Zoom meeting banner at the bottom there. I've got a couple questions to get us started that were submitted ahead of time. So the first one I have is about advisors. So a question that was asked was, do advisors generally aid in the transition process into graduate school? And if not, who are some other possible mentors, resources, and offices you can turn to help with that transition? So Raquel, why don't you lead us off there?
Sure. It really is dependent on the advisor. It's sad to say, it's not uniform. So some of them may think that that's their job. Others may think, no, that's not me who does this. What Miriam said about having a network of mentors, so multiple mentors is really good. So you're trying to identify whatever resources they have. So asking older graduate students how they got acclimated can give you some tips on resources, programs, and things like that. Some institutions may send you notices of programs for transitions. Like I send notices for my first year scholars program. It's only for incoming students, so they can come in and help with that. Some student organizations may run some boot camp. We used to have a hit the ground running from one of our student organizations. So they would do every beginning of the semester for that. And also look for the orientations, even, the structured orientations that the programs will have. Sometimes the graduate school will have them, and then the individual programs will also have that, or may, I wouldn't say they would, but some of them may rely on the graduate school orientation. So attend those. You're going to be bombarded with information. So take notes. It sometimes is boring. I know I've been through a ton of them as a student and as a faculty member. So, but taking notes of the key things, but even if you're not, absorbing a lot of things, know who the people who are talking are so that you can ask them questions.
Miriam, is there anything you wanted to add to that question?
No, I think that was perfect. I think it was perfectly
Excellent.
captured.
So we've got an audience question here. Do you have any advice specifically for people coming into graduate school several years after getting their undergraduate degree? What does the transition look like for somebody that has been out of their undergraduate for a while? Miriam, would you like to lead off?
Yeah, I would say it really depends on whether you're going into a master's program or a PhD program. Um, in any case, if you're straight out of undergrad, it still requires some level of transition. So I would say you want to make sure that you are preparing yourself for the gap. If research is something that you're looking to pursue, maybe you know that you will have to be knee deep in data analysis. So it wouldn't hurt to go onto YouTube University is what I call, or some of these data analysis workshops, tools that allow you to get acclimated with like SAS. I know there's like the SAS Institute, there's Stata, R. So there are a lot of free resources out there, or paid resources or library resources where you can get acclimated with areas of and skills needed to do the kind of research that maybe you're kind of rusty on. The other thing I would say is there are some programs that offer boot camps. It's going to vary from program to program, but you're going to have that sort of engagement in the summer to do a boot camp prior to the program. So some will do preparation programs to just make sure you're acclimated. It's something that's worth asking about. And then the other piece of it is things that you can do yourself to demonstrate that self-direction earlier on, and ask students or faculty for copies of syllabi. Maybe there are courses that you have to sign up for in the first semester. Ask in advance for the syllabus so you can know kind of what the trajectory for the courses are. You won't have the materials quite yet, but you'll be able to kind of map out what content areas, what foundational knowledge you need to have a firm grasp of.
Great. Raquel, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll add that. So you will find that you will be at a different maturity level and skill set for leading life than some of the other students. But so that's a positive for you. You have certain skills that they may be starting to develop in their first year that you already have. You just have to look at it at a different way. It's no longer as whatever the job that you had, the words, the environment that you have, how to make that work for your graduate education. And be prepared for your professors and mentors to not recognize that in the first instance, and be polite but kind of bring it up, rely on that, on your experience, and bring that, make the connection of your skills and expertise and experience in that, and how that translates to what you can do in graduate school. Is that part of being proactive, and making that connection for them instead of them for you, to make it relevant for that. So then they start to recognize who you are as a student and may start to bring, the I won't say everyone, but the good mentors will realize that and bring that and help support you in those areas and bring you different resources that are more tailored to you. But they can only do that if they know you. And sometimes, yes, they may have read you, a few of them may have read your application to graduate school, but they have read a ton of them as well, right? Beyond yours. So really bring that to the front and help them understand who you are and what you're bringing to graduate school.
Great. Yeah, one thing that I would add too is if there's some foundational skills that you may have acquired in your undergraduate phase that you haven't used for your work over the past several years, you may want to brush up on those because sometimes your graduate faculty or your advisor might assume that you are up to date and that you've been continuing to maintain those skills. So if you haven't, it might be helpful to go on YouTube University or revisit even some of your undergraduate materials if you still have them, just to make sure that you're up to date. So a couple more questions. One I think should be pretty quick. Can I publish a research paper as a graduate student during a master's degree? And I think we're all in agreement that yes, absolutely. And that in many cases you should. One thing I will say, if you're in the humanities and you're thinking about doing a doctoral degree, sometimes your advisor will tell you to hold some material for your dissertation. So just do be mindful if you plan on doing a longer research project, just because you don't want to burn it all the first year.
Yeah. And be mindful, thinking about where if it's something that's coming through things that you started in an undergraduate, think about authorship, people who worked on it together, who is part of it and have those discussions before you do that and check, especially if you're changing institutions, check that as well as appropriate for your field.
Great. And we've got one final question here. What strategy or strategies would you suggest for those intending to shorten their master's program or do an accelerated program that's either a year or just a little bit over a year? How does that change any of the strategies that you've shared? Miriam, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would just say that that requires you taking, or it may require you taking stock of your resources, the resources that are at your disposal, because that could be very time intensive, also could be monetarily intensive. So you're often, if you're an accelerated program, you're taking more credits. You may be working part-time or working full-time and going to school at an accelerated program. So just making sure that you've done a resource inventory to figure out how you'll navigate it. And also, I one of the things I like to share is like gaining the buy-in of folks that will be in on this journey with you. And I don't mean like convincing them. I mean they're ultimately going to be partners in crime, whether they want to or not. They're going to see you working through all of the work, doing the research. They're going to see you hustle, and you want to know that you have a support network, so to speak. So making sure that you've chatted with all the folks that I'm really doing this accelerated program is going to ramp up my time commitment to my studies. Are there ways that I can navigate and get more resources to kind of balance this out, right? And I think that's what I would say.
Raquel, do you have anything you'd like to add? Great. I think one thing that I will mention just before we close out in response to that question is it's really imperative in accelerated programs to do planning because you will get hit with four papers. And if you're doing a capstone or a thesis at the same time, you really have to make sure that you plan it out, or you can get into a situation where it's just not physically possible to do the work by the deadline. So definitely take that planning seriously and get started early. Okay, great. Well, I'd like to thank Raquel and Miriam very much for joining us today on the webinar and sharing all their awesome insights. A reminder that this event was recorded and we will have the slides, so that's going to be shared with all of you if you'd like to revisit them. And thank you again to our presenters and to the audience for joining us for today's webinar. Stay warm out there. It's cold. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next National Name Exchange webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.